first sight of the
I'm proud to note that all of our federal and state partners, they are either en route here or on the ground with us right now. We did see some neighbors who live in the surrounding community. Just stay in your home. Again, it's still an active scene and it's under investigation. This is only the first of many briefings, I'm sure, to come on this evening. And of course, when daylight comes, when we have more facts and information to share with you. But I do want to say a special thank you right now, again, to all of our federal and state partners and our amazing first responders right here in the city of Philadelphia. Our fire, our EMS, our police department, they have been here working vigorously to ensure that we get this perimeter and the surrounding area blocked off to ensure that we make public safety and health our #1 priority. So we don't have any further information to share at this time. I've spoken to our Governor Josh Shapiro. He is en route. I've spoken to our U.S. Senator John Fetterman, other federal officials, and everyone, all hands on deck. That's where we are right now. Thank you so very much, and we'll have more information to report in the near future.
Thank you, Mayor.
As you just hear from Mayor Sherelle Parker addressing the media after this plane went down around 6 o'clock this evening, she emphasized that the number of fatalities is unknown. She also said that several dwellings, several residences and vehicles were impacted. We, of course, heard that from witnesses on the ground. She also emphasized what we have also been hearing, urging people to stay away from this scene, despite the curiosity and wanting to get close, perhaps if you weren't at your home and you want to get near your home, wanting to see if it was damaged or get close to loved ones or to your business. She is urging people not to do that and to stay away from the scene so that medical personnel can attend to where it is most important. Also, we saw with Shaira Arias, and we heard from a witness too, there was debris on the ground, and we saw that, a piece from the plane that had flown and landed on the ground. And one witness said he saw numerous pieces of the plane. Mayor Sherelle Parker telling people to leave that alone, not to touch any of those pieces, and to call 911. Again, a plane crash in Northeast Philadelphia that went down around 6 o'clock this evening, a Learjet 55 after departing from Northeast Philadelphia Airport. We know there were 5 people on board the plane en route to Springfield Branson National Airport in Missouri.
And she said that this was the first of what she expected to be several briefings about this incident. She said that there were federal partners and state partners that were either there already or on their way. She thanked the fire, EMS, and police, and she said she's spoken to the governor and Senator John Fetterman and other officials about this. Let's check in now with Tracy Davidson, who is in our newsroom, who has more information for us at this time. Tracy.
We're getting more information about the timeline of this crash. FlightAware shows the plane, again, as we have known and said, that it took off from Northeast Airport around 6:06. Take a look at that flight path on your screen. The green line shows how far the plane made it, about 1,600 feet in the air. We also have a recording from air traffic control from the moment the plane took off. So let's listen to that initial communication.
Medevac Med Service 056 on departure, turn right heading 290, runway 24, clear for takeoff, wind 25010.
That's when the plane was preparing for departure. The next clip you're going to hear is when the plane was cleared for takeoff.
Medevac Med Service 056 affirmative. On departure, turn right heading 290, runway 24, clear for takeoff.
Okay, and then shortly after that, the air traffic controller tries to make contact with the plane on departure, and you will hear the pilot respond.
Medevac Med Service 056, contact Philly departure 123.8.
123.8, Mike Tango Sierra 056 Medevac. Thank you, good day.
And after takeoff, air traffic control tries to make contact with that pilot again. You will hear they get no response from the Medevac Med Service. Listen to this.
Medevac Med Service Northeast Tower. Medevac Med Service 056 Northeast Tower, you on frequency?
Medevac Mike Tango Sierra 056 Northeast Tower, how do you hear this transmission?
There are a few more attempts from air traffic control to make contact with the plane. Next, you hear air traffic control refer to the plane as a lost aircraft.
Approach to runway 24, what's going on down there?
Position 765, we have a lost aircraft. We're not exactly sure what happened, so we're trying to figure it out. For now, the field is going to be closed, so no inbounds or outbounds probably.
So air traffic control says then they were grounding all flights, no flights coming in or out. So that just gives us a better idea of the moments right after 6:05 when the plane left Northeast Airport, which, as we've been saying, is only about 3.5 to 4 miles away from that crash scene. Jacqueline and Fred?
We've heard from officials, a timeline that said 6:30, and then we've seen the timestamp say 6:07 on numerous videos,
Right.
And then the mayor saying shortly after 6 o'clock. So not much time from takeoff to the accident that happened here tonight.
And we're getting more information. Of course, in the beginning, the numbers will change. We've gone from 6 to 5. In terms of the breakdown right now, they were saying that there are 4 crew members who were on board that medical plane, that jet, and 2 passengers, including a pediatric patient and an escort on board. Whether that escort is a doctor or a family member, we don't know. And no names are being released right now, of course, because of, as always, notification to immediate family members.
NBC 10's Shair Arias is live for us now.
Jacqueline, Fred, we just heard from the Mayor Sherelle Parker. The main thing that stood out to me was that when she started speaking, she said, we want to ask everybody mainly for prayers, right? They said that they do not have a number on how many fatalities. They did say that homes obviously were affected, and also that vehicles in that area were also affected. They are urging the public here in Philadelphia to stay away from this area because, of course, they are conducting this investigation. This literally happened after 6 o'clock. So you can imagine that anybody who doesn't even live around this area should not even be coming close. I'm going to walk a little bit around to show you guys how massive the scene is. Still, obviously, it's not just 1 block or 2 blocks. You can see that this just extends all the way further down. And you can see that actually right here in this one intersection, you can see all the homes, and the police are blocking that section right here because this is part, obviously, of the perimeter of where the police is right now. We're literally on Roosevelt Boulevard, and you can see that there's no vehicles that are passing. And if we move a little bit towards my left, if Adam can go ahead and show you guys, police are still in this area, of course, but we can tell that there is even more officers than there were when we first arrived. And now it is completely blocked off. At first, when we were here, people were kind of sort of trying to get in. We, as reporters, were able to actually be in that section. But now you can see that police have almost even turned off the lights in this area and blocked this portion of it where we can't get close. But we can still see, if Adam can go ahead and show you guys, the smoke that is still coming through where this accident happened. But the mayor, of course, saying that all hands on deck. after this accident happened, and that more information will be coming throughout the evening. I'm going to send it back to you guys in the studio.
Shaira, when we came to you the last time, you were in a very busy, heavily congested area. Now it's very quiet where you are. Is that because investigators and authorities moved you to a different location, or because people got out of this area and those roads are closed and they were heeding the advice to leave so that medical personnel could get closer to the scene?
I'm so glad that you asked that, Jacqueline, because I can feel how quiet it is in comparison to when we first arrived. And yes, at first people started to leave because officers were telling people that they needed to clear this area. And I think as time went by, people on their own were also deciding to leave because they maybe couldn't get through to where they were trying to get. Maybe they were trying to get to their homes. But definitely, I'm so glad that you pointed this out because it is so quiet in comparison to when we first arrived. And I feel like we can feel that right now police are just, and the officials are starting to get more information, and obviously it's just a massive tragedy.
I imagine eerily quiet in many ways, Shaira. Thank you for that report.
Let's go now to
Thank you,
NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Brittany Shipp, who has been tracking the conditions here. You said earlier around the 6 o'clock hour or so that we would have at least 5 more hours of rain. What does that look like with what's happening now?
Yeah, we're going to track the future forecast, but we also want to take a look back at some of the observations at the time of this plane crash. Weather is always a concern when you hear about a plane crash, either weather or mechanical issues. So this is what we know so far. This plane took off from the Northeast Philadelphia airport, which is 3.5 to 4 miles away from the site. So we now know this is where the Northeast Philadelphia airport is. This is where the crash site is. We know that this plane was traveling to the southwest, and it was a very short duration from takeoff because it only got about 4 miles to the southwest. The other thing we start to look at is what were the observations at that time. The latest observation through the National Weather Service shows us visibility was at 6 miles. This would be about 10 minutes before, so at 5:54 p.m. Our wind speeds were out of the southwest at 10 miles per hour. We have definitely been dealing with rain throughout most of the day. That is the green that you see. We have our radar turned on at this time. So with this small plane crash, it happened at Roosevelt Boulevard and Cottman Avenue. Most of the day, we have reports of low-hanging clouds, low ceilings. We've been dealing with rain on and off, and our wind speeds throughout the day have been ranging between 5 to about 12 miles per hour with these wind speeds coming out of the south. We also know that our temperatures have been in the upper 40s and 50s, so we were not dealing with any mixed precipitation. This was strictly rain that was coming down. And again, when we have these low clouds, it definitely makes it difficult for pilots to see, take off, and land. Now we want to switch off the radar and just show you the satellite. So we want to paint and illustrate the picture of just how cloudy it has been throughout most of today. We also have our live camera network to illustrate the low visibility. Now, behind all these clouds are actually the Comcast Technology Center. You can barely make it out because that's how low the clouds are hanging for today. We also want to show you the airport here. You can see the visibility is definitely decreased, especially north and east of the Philadelphia region. Within the last hour or so, our visibility has lifted to 8 miles, but for the past 2 to 3 hours, it was down to about 6 miles. We consider dense fog anywhere between 1 to 2 miles and even down to about 1/4 of a mile. So we were not dealing with incredibly dense, foggy conditions or extremely low visibility. We did have decreased visibility at around 6 miles. Our wind speeds, we've also been watching for you today. They have been ranging anywhere between 3 to about 15 miles per hour with wind gusts up to about 20 miles per hour. So again, the small plane crash, it left the Northeast Philadelphia airport, only made it about 4 miles to the southwest before crashing closer to Cottman Avenue and Roosevelt Boulevard. We will continue monitoring this situation, helping in any way we can. But again, rain is in the forecast for at least the next 2 to 3 hours until about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, which also could compound some of the rescue efforts. So again, we will keep you updated with exactly what to expect. Fred and Jacqueline, we will send it back to you at this time.
All right, Brittany, thank you.
Claudia Vargas is joining us now. I know you've been doing a lot of research over the past couple of hours. Are you giving us information on the plane?
I just spoke with the spokesperson for the company, Jet Rescue Air Ambulance, and they confirmed that they do not believe there are any survivors on this plane. They have confirmed that there were 6. 4 of those were crew. 1 was a minor who was a patient, and then that patient's guardian. They were actually all Mexican nationals and were headed back to Tijuana today, and it's unclear if the pilots there had taken off previously from the airport in the Northeast, but they're very experienced pilots is what I'm told. They fly about 600 flights each year, and so they're saying that this is very rare and that it comes as a big shock to them that this would have happened.
And as far as we know, the plane was not in the air very long at all.
No,
it
had just taken off and it had just refueled, hence why we saw the big flames.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately. But we do have a soundbite from the spokesperson we spoke with.
What were they doing in the U.S.? What were they doing in Philadelphia?
Medical care. The patient came to the United States for medical care. And repatriate. It appears that there are no survivors from that crash.
Okay, I'm so sorry. So was the patient receiving care here at a hospital in Philadelphia?
The patient was received. I'm not at liberty to say where and what, especially because it's a minor child. All I can say is she came to the United States for life-saving treatment. The treatment ran its course. She was ready to go home, and we were contracted to bring her back home to Mexico. The flight's ultimate destination was Tijuana International Airport, from which they were scheduled to go home by ground ambulance.
And another thing that Mr. Gold shared is that the flight was actually being paid by an international charity. So this was a charity giving to try to, as he said, repatriate the daughter and mother back to their country after receiving care.
What we know is an angel flight.
Yes, correct. Sometimes referred to
so
as
tragic, a pediatric patient on board, as well as crew members, and as you told us now, a guardian. We didn't know if that additional person was a doctor or a guardian, but now that is clarified. Claudia, thank you for that update.
Thank you, Claudia. Let's go now to Aaron Baskerville, who is live for us now, or Siobhan McGurl, I'm being told now by the producers, who is on the ground now. Siobhan, what can you tell us?
Hey guys, right now we're at Roosevelt and Cottman. You can see it's quiet here right now. Roosevelt Boulevard shut down as police surround this area. I want to show you this gas station right here. We spoke with the man a little bit ago. He described the moment this crash happened. He was there. He says he looked up in the sky, he saw the bright lights, and then he says he closed the doors to the gas station because he saw debris coming down. We just heard from the mayor in that press conference here. They talked about the debris. They talked about cars on fire, homes on fire, impacted by this crash. You can see right now still a very active scene. All of the roads in this area blocked off, police here, fire here, still very active. The mayor stressed to us that that would be just the first briefing of many, a long night ahead for sure. If you know this area, you know a lot of businesses in the area, very populated, but there's also neighborhoods. And I want to show you back. If you look up just over this auto zone right over here, you can still see some of the smoke billowing. That's from that neighborhood area back in that way. Coming back a little bit closer, though, again, very quiet. The mayor stressed asking Philadelphians to stay away from this area. It seems, though, at least where we are in this media kind of staging area, that people are heeding that warning. She also stressed that if anybody sees any debris that we were talking about, that people have reported to us seeing, that they do not touch it, that they let the authorities know. A very, very fluid scene. I will say, though, as we've talked to people over time here who have seen this happen, there is shock, there is awe, there is a sadness, people just heartbroken and praying for those involved, is still in shock as people talk to us who saw this happen, guys, still really trying to comprehend and take a deep breath and process what they saw. Again, you can see very, very active here. We're pushed back to this media staging area. When the mayor came over, I will say that there was kind of a heaviness in the air as she came over. not confirming any reports on any fatalities there, but she did stress asking Philadelphians for prayers. Many of the people who I spoke with who saw this happen echoing that same sentiment tonight, guys.
All right, Siobhan, thank you.
An aircraft went down in the vicinity of Roosevelt Mall on Cottman Avenue. This occurred shortly after 6 p.m. this evening. As of right now, we have no reports on the number of fatalities. So right now we're just asking for prayers for any and everyone who may have been affected. We do want to note that several dwellings and vehicles were impacted. So what are we asking you to do for us right now, Philadelphia? We're urging you to please stay away from the scene. If you see debris, call 911. Don't touch anything. This is still an active scene under investigation. I'm proud to note that all of our federal and state partners, they are either en route here or on the ground with us right now. We did see some neighbors who live in the surrounding community. Just stay in your home. Again, it's still an active scene and it's under investigation.
There you hear the news conference that Philadelphia Mayor Sherelle Parker gave just moments ago, where she is urging the public to stay away from the scene despite what curiosity may be, because this is still an active investigation. She said that homes had been impacted, vehicles impacted, and urging folks to call 911 if they see anything on the ground, because this is still an active investigation.
We do want to go to Aaron Baskerville on the ground, providing excellent perspective for us, and he joins us now live again in Northeast Philadelphia. Aaron.
Jackie and Fred, it's hard to describe to you the witness accounts. A lot of them are startling. They're unnerving. Some of them are actually unbelievable. We had talked to a man who was over here. We're near Cottman and Bustleton right now at the intersection. We're just giving you a view of where we are right now. You can still see the amount of people that are over here. But we've talked to several people. But we talked to a man who was right by here at the Roosevelt Mall. He was inside. He saw the plane go down. He actually saw a ball of fire. He saw a person on fire. Walking away from some of the wreckage. We've talked to others who have seen cars on fire, seeing that fireball light up the sky and then light up this whole area that we've always been talking about for several hours. That you can't drive that point across enough, that this is a highly populated, heavily populated residential area right here. And this is a main drag. Everybody in the city knows Cottman Avenue. Obviously, we're giving you one more look down here at that scene where all the first responders are, where we have been for a significant portion of the night. In the distance from what I'm looking at right now, I don't see that smoke billowing in the air like we have been seeing for the last few hours. So I don't know if that's progress in putting out that situation right now. The mayor talked briefly. We also talked to a woman a little while ago who lives nearby that crash scene. She saw some of the damage. She obviously heard about what happened with the DC mid-air collision, and now this and that, all of that had her unnerved. Here's what she told us a little while ago.
Actually, I was just sitting on my sofa watching the news about the plane crash in Washington, and never in my wildest dreams would have I ever thought that this would have happened in this residential neighborhood like this. My heart just broke.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a portion of what she said. She said her heart broke. She said her heart was racing. She went on to tell me that she saw about 8 cars, at least a half a dozen cars on fire. She didn't actually see the plane go down, but she saw the aftermath, of course, and she was obviously devastated. She said she heard a bunch of popping noises as well shortly after that crash. So that's just one of the folks that we talked to out here. We are going to be, what we call in the business, turning around a lot of sound. That means we're going to be editing some sound and giving that back to you guys so you can hear some more witness accounts. We've talked to several people, and I can't even do it justice describing what they're saying to us. But the look on people's faces when you talk to them, the folks that were actually out here who actually saw it, or saw the aftermath, or saw the big ball of flame out here, saw the cars on fire, or saw the folks running away from the wreckage, or saw the folks running to it. It's just something that will be ingrained in me and for anyone that was out here. But just once again, like, just turn around the camera real quickly, Mark. This is just a portion of the people that have been out here for hours in the rain. This is just one of the staging sites, so to speak, for the folks that live out here who or have their cars out here or trying to get back to the buildings out here. This is where they are keeping them behind the rope. You can see right here as well as officers going through. You can see some of the Pico and utility trucks. I told you before that I know a couple of the blocks back there that they had turned off the power so they can get some of that crucial work done as well, right near the crash scene and right close to some of those homes that were damaged out there as well. But this is the road. This is the area down there. That is where all the action has taken place for several hours, and this is a lot of stuff you'll see too. There, I mean, the officers are doing their job. They're keeping people away from this area and all areas here as we just pan the scene. So a lot of witness accounts that we're going to continue to bring you over the next couple of hours. The one that sticks out with me is the man who did see the aftermath and tells me he did see somebody injured and on fire, but he couldn't tell me what happened afterwards. He couldn't tell me if that person ended up somehow, some way being okay, or he just didn't see where that person went to, of course. But yeah, just a tough day down here, and tough to really explain to you what we're seeing and what we're hearing out here, guys.
Aaron, every time we come to you, it seems as though the eyewitness accounts are more shocking than the last, when people were describing the row of cars on fire. But now that you're saying a person you spoke with described a man walking away from the wreckage and on fire. Impossible to fathom.
So So Jackie, let me tell you, which was unbelievable. You see a lot of video. Obviously, in a scenario like this, you're going to see a lot of stuff, and we're obviously in the field and back at the station. We're doing our best to properly vet everything, right, to make sure that this video is, from this area. This person shot it. This person took it. All of the stuff that we have to do our due diligence, right? So I had seen that video, and we were like, wow, this is obviously insane, like we've never seen anything like that. And then when you walk up on somebody who's a witness who was there, and he's telling you that exact same thing, and you didn't talk to him before at all, you didn't tell him about the video, and he's basically telling you exactly what you had saw hours earlier, and that's matching up and it's lining up. It's hard to describe. And you could tell when I was talking to him over there, and we have some of that sound that we're going to give you throughout the next couple of hours. We're going to play that for you in a little while. But you could tell that he was still, his heart was racing. His voice went up a couple of notches. He was still scared talking to me, and this was this was a couple hours after he had witnessed what he did, and he was still upset, and his voice was cracking as he was telling me that, and you can just see it in his eyes and his face. I mean, you're never going to see something like that, and most of us, hopefully, thankfully, we'll never see anything like that. And we all know that it's going to take a while to get through the investigation, but it's obvious that there are going to be some folks out here who are going to need some attention after this is done. Obviously, not just for the physical injuries that folks may still have out here, but also the emotional scars and injuries that they're going to have from what they've seen and witnessed out here over the last few hours, guys.
Yeah, he will never be the same after seeing that.
No, not at all.
And devastating.
It's one thing to see videos like this, as Aaron described, see people on their Ring cameras and their Nest cameras, and to see the plane go down and to see the huge ball of flames. But quite another for people who are there on the ground near that scene and they're seeing these cars erupt in flames, and they're seeing people walk away from this wreckage on fire. Impossible to believe. And this is something that, of course, it's still the early stages of trying to figure out and glean more information about what happened, what led up to it, and most importantly, the number of people injured on the plane, of course, and then also in that area of the many businesses and the residential properties.
Yeah, and we're hearing from many leaders who are weighing in on this devastation that has hit Northeast Philadelphia. Let's go to Tracy Davidson, who has a statement from Congressman Boyle.
Congressman Brendan Boyle, that's his district, the 2nd District in Pennsylvania. He knows the area very well, Northeast Philadelphia. He says tonight our community has experienced a tragedy. My heart goes out to the victims, their families, and everyone impacted by this devastating plane crash. I want to extend my deepest gratitude to the first responders, especially our brave Philadelphia firefighters who acted quickly and courageously. Their dedication and service to our community are truly remarkable. He says he's been in contact with the FAA and the NTSB and will continue to follow their investigation closely. It's critical that we get answers. And also in touch with the mayor. We also heard the mayor say she's in touch with Governor Shapiro. Governor Shapiro has said he has offered all state resources to help with this. We also know the ATF is on scene right now. We do know NTSB and FAA investigating, with NTSB taking the lead. Fred?
And we just heard from Claudia Vargas moments ago. We do know that a girl who was returning to Mexico after receiving treatment for an illness in the United States was among the 6 people on board the plane that crashed in Philadelphia, an Angel flight.
Yeah, so there were 4. There were several crew members, but there was a pilot, a co-pilot, a physician, a paramedic, and then that minor girl patient and a guardian. Just devastating. We know about the nature, at least, that she had received a life-saving treatment, and for all intents and purposes, we know that the treatment went well, and she boarded that flight with crew members, and the flight was just 4 miles away from takeoff before it went down, and they did not make it back. So just devastating news to hear. But the FAA confirms again 6 people on board that plane that crashed here in Northeast Philadelphia.
And it's hard enough to look at the video of the plane going down, but that much more difficult when you learn the stories behind the people who were on board that plane.
Yeah.
Making it even more difficult to digest. We're working on getting an aviation expert on the phone to speak with him. But this reaction is what is across the board. And these are just the few snippets that we are seeing from people who live in that area of Northeast Philadelphia at Roosevelt and Cottman Boulevard. We saw Shaira Iris earlier. Initially, the area where she was standing was heavily congested, full of cars, full of traffic. We saw people across the street from where Shaira was on the corner looking to try to get answers. And when we went to her a short time ago, that area now emptied, heeding the warnings from authorities on scene, urging people and demanding that they evacuate this area so that they could clear the scene and get to the people who needed help.
And that was the message we heard from the mayor, Sherelle Parker, who gave her briefing a few minutes ago, telling us what we could see from the timestamp on several of these videos, that this aircraft crashed on Cottman Avenue shortly after 6 p.m. The mayor not confirming the fatalities that we know, total 6, according to the FAA, but asking for prayers because of the devastation that this crash has done to the community. Several homes and vehicles impacted, on fire, burning, several folks having to evacuate their homes this evening. The power has been turned off and they have been evacuated because their neighborhood now is the scene of an airplane crash and an active investigation scene. The mayor urging people to stay away, not to touch anything, but instead to call 911 if they see any debris out there. We know that there were federal and state partners that were either there or on their way to aid with this investigation, and we know that several hands from the Philadelphia Police Department are involved, along with the fire department, in securing this area as this investigation continues tonight. The mayor saying that this one briefing that she gave would be one of many on this incident.
And we also heard from Claudia. We know now that the plane that you just see right there descending so quickly behind those homes had just fueled up. Hence the big, huge flames and that ball of fire. It had just fueled, it had just taken off, and then descended so quickly and crashed.
And you'd have to know that the call to evacuate and to not go outside but to close windows and doors would have to factor into that call because of the plane just being fueled in the fire.
We want to go right now to Arthur Wolk, aviation expert right now, who we just spoke to regarding the plane crash 2 days ago in the Potomac River, D.C. Now talking to you, unfortunately, about this tragedy that happened right in our own backyards. What can you tell us, what you know, and what you have learned so far?
I think the most important bit of evidence that we've seen so far is the doorbell video showing the aircraft descending at an incredible angle, like almost 45 degrees, which means that the airplane was out of control. No pilot would voluntarily descend any airplane at that angle. That probably resulted in the airplane striking the ground at over 400 knots and probably 5 or even 10,000 feet a minute going down that fast. So something overtook this flight crew, whether it was a mechanical malfunction that affected the pitch of the airplane, in other words, up or down, whether it was a flight control malfunction that wouldn't allow them to recover the airplane, whether there was an instrument failure in the airplane that would not allow them to fly the airplane under the weather conditions that existed, although there are duplicates of all those instruments with the first officer on the right seat, and so that is less likely. I think given the horrible destruction, the sad, utter and complete destruction of this airplane, I think much of the evidence will have to come from the cockpit voice recorder to see what the crew was talking about. And perhaps if they communicated their emergency to air traffic control, those air traffic control tapes might be helpful as well. And then that might drive the investigation to look at whatever small pieces there are left to see what, if any, malfunction there was.
Arthur, this was a Learjet 55. Can you talk to us about specifically what kind of plane that is and what it is typically used for and what the capacity is for an aircraft like that?
Well, the Lear 55 was an outgrowth of all the Learjets that we are all familiar with and have heard about over the years. It's a much larger version. It has a much larger interior, and therefore it's used a lot now for medevac purposes because you can get stretchers and other kinds of equipment in there and out of there more easily than in the smaller Learjets. Very, very fast airplane. As fast as any airliner, even faster, flies very high up in the 50,000s of feet. Relatively fuel efficient, can fly a long way, and because it's so fast, if you have a medical emergency patient, it allows you to get them from place to place quickly. It's a two-pilot airplane. In other words, you have to have two certified flight tested pilots at the controls. It has fully duplicated controls. It's a very sophisticated airplane for its day. It hasn't been made probably for the last 15 or 20 years, but it was a remarkable airplane when it was built and continues to fly in significant numbers around the world today.
Arthur, what does it tell you that we know this plane made that steep descent, but did it right after taking off? That plane had just taken off and also had just refueled. What does that tell you?
Well, first, naturally, it would have to refuel. It had come in from, I believe, Miami earlier in the day. And then it was going to Springfield, Missouri, I believe, and therefore needed quite a bit of fuel. So nothing unusual about that. The airplane was at a relatively light weight, only 6 people aboard. That's not a lot. And even if you add the equipment, that's not a lot either. So nothing about the numbers of people or the equipment on board or the way it was configured would give you any indication why the airplane descended in the manner it did. Now, the way departure works out of Northeast Philly, because I fly out of there in my own jet, is that you're first given an initial altitude of, say, 2,000 feet. And then when you're radar identified by Philadelphia Approach Control, you're given a higher altitude. Sometimes it's an intermediate altitude of 4,000, then 7,000, then 10,000. I would expect them to have probably been up to perhaps 4,000 or climbing to 4,000 at the time. So the airplane is in what I'll call the critical part of takeoff, where there are configuration changes. You've raised the flaps, you've raised the landing gear. You're now in the climb mode. First, you're in level flight at 2,000 feet. Now you're going to be changing the configuration to climb again. But for these type-rated experienced pilots, this is a no-brainer. I mean, and by this time the autopilot's on, so essentially you're a systems monitor. Having said that, the weather wasn't great. That doesn't mean anything for an airplane of that type, except that if something goes wrong, you can't see outside. You have to rely on the instruments inside to be able to cope with it. If you have an autopilot failure or a sudden pitch down, that's a handful, especially in that airplane because it's very sleek. So it'll speed up very quickly. What I'm troubled by most of all is there is no reason for a descent at that angle. That tells me that there's something broken.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the inquiry has to start.
Yeah.
We were wondering if it would be weather as a contributing factor because of the low visibility, the cloud cover, the rain, but the speed of that descent to you is pointing toward a malfunction of some kind.
It's likely to me because you have two experienced type-rated pilots on board. Flying in weather like this is a no-brainer. I mean, for most people, you look outside and you see the low visibility and the cloud ceiling low and you think, oh, wow, I wouldn't want to be flying in that. But the reality is we do it all the time. It's routine. You're trained to do it. And the airplane is equipped to be able to fly in it successfully. So the only part of the weather that's of interest here is that when you're flying at night and the visibility is bad and you're in weather, you no longer can look outside to get any cues. Everything you need has to be in the cockpit. Now it's there, and it's there in duplicate. But if you've got a problem, it's complicated by the conditions that you're flying in.
And in a situation like this where you have a highly densely populated area in the city where you have an aviation issue that happens, walk us through the challenge of, what that's like for a pilot I mean, obviously this plane looked like it was descending out of control, but even under the best circumstances, I mean, this is a difficult situation to right or wrong with the plane.
Well, you have to understand that the way pilots are trained to fly jets in particular is everything is a checklist related item. So you do the same thing every time. This is why airplanes don't crash every day. And it's an extremely safe endeavor, especially jet planes, because the pilots are well trained and they're disciplined. They've done this before. So this is not a problem, usually. What happens is that when something occurs that affects flight controls, that is your ability to make the airplane do what you need it to do to complete the flight, whether it's reconfiguring for the climb, whether it's leveling off, whether it's turning. All these things require everything to work in concert. And if something fails, or for example, if a pilot fails, you can get into trouble fairly quickly. Having said that, this airplane is a rocket ship, and therefore, and it's an extremely docile airplane to fly. You have to be good, you have to be experienced, but this is not the space shuttle. This is an airplane that was certified to be flown by 2 pilots of ordinary piloting skills. And the people who were flying it were probably far and above ordinary flying skills. So something happened. Something happened. You don't crash like this unless something untoward occurs.
Yeah, can you talk to us about what the challenge for investigators will be at this point? given the type of crash scene this is. We've covered plane crashes that happen in open fields where there aren't many people, but this is a neighborhood in a highly densely populated area, and the weather happens to not be in our favor as well. What kinds of challenges does that present for the preliminary stages of this investigation?
One of the things, of course, will be that people don't touch the wreckage. Because if there's a wreckage diagram that has to be made to try to get some sense of where things are, where things were, when they impacted the ground, things of that nature, that's a very important item, and therefore it's critical that people don't take home souvenirs. The second part of it is you've got this destruction all around you. You not only have the destruction of the airplane and the horrible fire that ensued, but you also have destruction of the environment in which the airplane impacted. And so you got to sort out what's the airplane and what's something else. What's a piece of a car? What's a piece of a house? What's a piece of something else? And so that becomes a challenge. And there will have to be a very extensive and expansive group of investigators on the ground who literally use their feet and have bags to pick up pieces of identifiable airplane parts and identify where they were found in the debris field. And that's going to be a tough job, I will tell you that, because this airplane looks to me like it was really obliterated. And that's going to make investigation tough. Having said that, if you are an experienced, seasoned investigator and the airplane is in shambles, then what you have to do is take what information you have and try to come up with what could have caused this kind of malfunction. What could cause this airplane to descend at that angle or at that speed all of a sudden? Okay? And then once you go there, now you can work backwards into the wreckage examination. You look at the trim system. You look at the actuators. You look at the rigging of the horizontal stabilizer, if there's any of it left. You look at the flight controls to see if there's any breakage. I will tell you, sadly, that just looking at the catastrophic wreckage, that's going to be tough. But it's not impossible. Looking at the maintenance history of the airplane will be important. What if this airplane had a prior problem with pitch control? What if there was an autopilot malfunction previously that resulted in a pitch down? If you look at all the Learjet maintenance data that's on the FAA databases, you may see that there are other Lear 55s who've had a similar problem on takeoff. And you may want to back into this accident by looking at some of the prior incidents that didn't result in crashes. So there are lots of ways to investigate these accidents, even when it appears that there's nothing but shreds of metal and burnt material on the ground.
Yeah. You talked about how this plane is used often for medical flights. Do we know if this type of plane used for this purpose would have oxygen tanks on board?
Oh, sure. It would have medical oxygen. In fact, we know it did because there was a medical oxygen tank found along a street and was on a video that I saw already this evening. So that is not uncommon. However, you can't rush to a conclusion. Some people have already, which is a mistake, that somehow the oxygen tanks contributed to this accident. I really feel quite certain that that's a red herring and it's not even worth going. Why? Because this airplane was not on fire. Yeah. You can see its descent. The airplane was not on fire. So if you're thinking that there was an oxygen tank that somehow caught fire and caused a problem with the airplane, that's not indicated by the video that we see.
Yeah. That descent is very troubling and certainly will be a focus, as you say. Arthur Woke, thank you so much for your insight and your time as we look into this developing story. Thank you.
Sure.
I want to go now to NBC 10's Tracy Davidson, who is in our newsroom now.
You're welcome.
With more information. Tracy?
Fred, we're learning more about the plane and its takeoff. FlightAware shows the plane took off from Northeast Philadelphia Airport at 6:06. We have learned it was only in the air for 30 seconds. Look at the flight path on your screen. That green line shows how far the plane made it, about 1,600 feet in the air. We also have recordings from air traffic control from the moment the plane took off, and we'll walk you through exactly what happened. Let's listen to the initial communication.
Medevac, med-service 056 on departure, turn right heading 290, runway 24, clear for takeoff, wind 25010.
All right, that's the plane preparing for departure. Next clip that you're going to hear is when the plane was cleared for takeoff.
Medevac, med-service 056 affirmative. On departure, turn right heading 290, runway 24, clear for takeoff.
And then shortly after that, air traffic control makes contact with the plane on departure, and you'll hear the pilot respond.
Medevac med-service 056, contact Philly departure 123.8.
123.8, Mike Tango Sierra 056 Medevac. Thank you, good day.
Thank you, good day, is what he says. After takeoff, air traffic control tries to make contact with that pilot again. You'll hear they get no response from the Medevac service.
Medevac med-service Northeast Tower. Medevac med-service 056 Northeast Tower. You on frequency?
Medevac Mike Tango Sierra 056 Northeast Tower. How do you hear this transmission?
And then there is no response. Air traffic control says that they are grounding all the flights, no flights coming in or out.
Approach to runway 24, what's going on down there?
Digit 765. We have a lost aircraft. We're not exactly sure what happened, so we're trying to figure it out. For now, the field is going to be closed, so no inbounds or outbounds probably.
Again, we walked you through that timeline. The plane was only in the air after takeoff for 30 seconds before it went down. We should also add that we are hearing from a number of people about that debris that you're seeing scattered across the area, and really some rather large chunks. You heard Mayor Parker say, if you see a piece of debris, please stay away from it. Don't touch it. Call 911. You really need to stay. And I've heard from a nurse who said, please, I'm seeing it in your live shots. Tell people to stay away. And I saw with Aaron being with so many people, even though police are telling people evacuate the area, there are onlookers and they want to see. And then you just heard Arthur Walk say, this is not the time to take a piece of a souvenir from this. You need to really, really be safe and stay away from all that debris. Fred.
Yeah, that is very good insight. Tracy Davidson, thank you from our newsroom. And that will be the challenge, really, as they continue this investigation and why they've been pushing people back so far, because the field of investigation and the interest, the area is growing wider because of the impact of that plane. For debris to be strewn about so far away, these are all areas of interest for investigators. And we just heard from Arthur Woke talking about this video that we've seen played out from different angles over and over again. The speed and angle of the descent of that plane is very troubling and very telling. Woke saying that that will probably be one of the first red flags that investigators look at that would indicate that something was wrong, something was malfunctioning, instrumentation in that plane duplicated. So obviously it couldn't be corrected by both pilots on board.
We want to right now go to First Alert meteorologist Brittany Shipp with a look at the conditions and details about the map.
Yes, and we've just visually been trying to put this puzzle together, and we do know that this plane took off from Northeast Philadelphia Airport just after 6 p.m. And we also know, just due to the location of the crash site, that it was only able to make it about 4 miles. So the latest reports coming in is that it was in the air less than a minute. These jets tend to move anywhere between 130 to about 170 miles per hour. So again, only in the air seconds before crashing here, tracking here to the southwest, and the airport is only 3.5 miles from that exact site. We've been watching and studying all of the observations around the time that the plane took off. Yes, it was actively raining, Visibility was reported from the airport at 5:54 at 6 miles. Wind speeds out of the south at 10 miles per hour. Cloudy day. Lots of rain, not incredibly heavy, however. So over a long duration of most of today, we will probably only pick up maybe half an inch to 3/4 of an inch of rain. So this wasn't even heavy rain. It is still currently raining at this time. We have more moderate downpours. This is our radar shot here where you see the yellow. That means moderate rain is currently coming down. We do know that low clouds do make it difficult, not impossible, but difficult to see, take off, and also land. So we had the low-hanging clouds, the lower visibility, but not incredibly low. 6 miles is still okay. And anytime we see dense fog or incredibly low visibility, we're talking less than a mile. That's not what we had today. You definitely had weather as part of a factor here in terms of we had cloudy conditions. We have the low-hanging clouds. This is technically our CTC building here in Philadelphia. You can't quite make it out. You can see the visibility is at least decreased, not to a dangerous level, but is decreased visibility at the airport. These were the conditions we were dealing with throughout most of today. Our visibility within the last hour or two has actually increased up to 8 miles. Before then, previously, it was closer to 6 miles. So we will continue to monitor this. We have more rain in store at least until midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning before we'll start to see everything clearing out and drying out. We'll have more details from the Weather Department in just a bit. We'll send it back to you.
Brittany, thank you for that. And as we heard from the aviation expert, the way that plane was descending so quickly and the way it was just angled, for him, he says it points to nothing other than a malfunction. There's no reason for a descent that you just saw of that speed other than a malfunction. He says that was a 45-degree angle. The plane, the medical plane, was clearly out of control, and it could have been mechanics easily that affected that pitch, possibly instrument failure. Of course, all of that will come out in the next few hours, few days as we get more information about this plane crash. But as Brittany said, and we also heard from Tracy Davidson, that plane only made it 4 miles. It was only in the air for 30 seconds before crashing.
Yeah. Our Aaron Baskerville is standing by now with more on the ground. Aaron, you've been providing some very compelling and personal insight from people on the ground who you've encountered, who witnessed all of this unfold.
Yeah, quite frankly, just to be honest with folks out there, it's quite unnerving, and it's to me, who I've seen a lot, it's extremely shocking. We've talked about the weather and the rain, and we've talked about the mayor and others wanting people to leave this area, not be onlookers, so to speak. And the more it rains, maybe that works in their favor of folks leaving this area and not staying here. But just a quick turn, really quickly, Mark, right there. There are still folks that are still out here, so they haven't left yet. But the crowd seems to be dying down and thinning as this rain continues, and the rain does come in fairly different waves too. So it comes hard. Right now it's starting to pick up as well. We are still near Cotman and Bustleton, the area we've kind of called our home base for now. We have crews on the other area where the staging area is, and maybe shortly we'll be hearing from Governor Shapiro. But yeah, we've talked to a whole bunch of folks. Last time we talked to you, we talked to the man who was right over here and basically says if he was there a couple minutes later, he doesn't know if he could be one of the folks that was injured or suffering some other sort of fate. He also said that he unfortunately had to see a man that he believes that was on fire, well, a person on fire. I told you that we'd turn that sound around for you. Here's this guy. Listen to him as he describes being here and kind of what he saw a couple hours ago.
Everything just shook. I thought like the buildings fell or something. I look outside and then all you see is a huge explosion. Like I look outside and bam, you see all this fire. And then I started shaking, and then I see a person running on fire, and it was just.
So you saw a person on fire running, right? Because I saw a video of that, but you actually saw that, right? So once again, are you running outside? Tell me what you're doing at that point. I didn't know what to do.
I was just there. I was just shook because it's like something crazy. You know, you just see somebody on fire. Like that's something you see in a movie.
I mean, that's the only thing you can really say at that point. That's something you see in the movies. You never expect to see that in person and feet away from you. And I can tell you, while we were talking to him, his voice was cracking. You can tell that he was nervous. He was still scared. He was still on edge. I mean, this is a couple hours after the fact, but he was still had that feeling in his body. And for a quick second, he wasn't even going to talk to us. He kind of didn't want to talk. He was with another family member, and he was moving on down the sidewalk. But he started to talk to me and give me this kind of first-person account that I hadn't heard yet, that I thought was just, you know, startling. And he was gracious enough to give us some of his time and talk to us. But you can just hear it there. We have some more sound from him that we're going to give you guys later on. Over the next hour or so, and just a lot going on here. But once again, here, this is where we've been for most of the night. You can still see a heavy presence of police officers and stuff. But the main thing is that plume of smoke that we were seeing for a long time, that seems to be out now, which is good news. And now we're just continuing to wait to get that update. The mayor saying that, you know, there are casualties, there are injuries, but she wasn't ready to give a figure or a number. She said there are homes damaged, there are cars damaged. But once again, this is such a fluid situation where things are changing by the minute, the moment, that she wasn't about to give us a number on that as well. But just being out here for so long, I can tell you that the weather is playing a factor right now in terms of getting people away from the scene, getting people away from the neighborhoods over there where this work continues. And I told you earlier that they had cut power to at least a block over there to continue the work. So folks were being evacuated or told to leave that area as well. But there's still some folks in their cars. But just, it's hard to describe. I keep saying it, and I know I sound like a broken record, but when you're here and you see it and you feel it, it's a whole different scenario. When you're up close and personal with a lot of these folks who saw this, and some, quite frankly, telling me they believe they escaped with their lives and escaped from being injured. That's how close they were when this entire area was engulfed in flames, guys.
And startling and disturbing for people out there, and you are doing a great job of describing what you're seeing on the ground. Aaron, thank you.
And what we have learned in the last couple of hours, while there's still so many questions, we have learned details about that plane that went down. Let's get more information now from Claudia Vargas.
Yeah, so I spoke with a spokesperson for the company that owns the airplane, the Jet Rescue Air Ambulance, and they, as I shared previously, shared with us that all 6 passengers are Mexican nationals. It was including a patient, that patient's guardian, 4 crew members. And they were all heading back home after the patient had been getting life-saving care. Now, when I spoke with the company, I asked about the aircraft, the experience that they had, and they said these are pilots who are extremely experienced. They fly about 600 hours, or 600 flights, sorry, each year. And here's a little bit more of that exchange.
Had they flown out of this airport in particular before?
I don't have the flight records in front of me. Obviously, I'm not at the office. This caught me by surprise, like everybody else. So I cannot tell you if they actually were experienced in taking off from that airfield. But in general, I can tell you that our company is probably one of the most experienced air ambulance companies in the Americas. We do between 600 and 700 flights a year. Our pilots are extremely experienced. Our co-pilots as well. They all are licensed. They all are certified for the aircraft. This was a reliable aircraft. This was a Lear 55, long-range Learjet, in the Learjet family of airplanes. Well-maintained. So to us, it's a shock, it's a surprise, and we will wait for the results of the NTSB investigation as to what happened here.
And so you heard him there. He said it's a reliable aircraft. He said they constantly do maintenance on it, and so they're really at a loss for what happened here.
And of course, a mystery, as we heard from the aviation expert as well, talking about the descent of it and the speed and that pitch of 45 degrees. And when we hear how experienced the crew was on board and in terms of the plane, how long it has what, 600, 700
600
flights?
to 700 flights a year, yeah.
A lot of questions and answers still to come.
Claudia, thank you. Yeah, we want to go to NBC 10's Tracy Davidson now, who is standing by in our newsroom with more. Tracy?
The president has just released a statement saying, so sad to see the plane go down in Philadelphia. More innocent souls lost. Our people are totally engaged. First responders are already being given credit for doing a great job. More to follow. God bless you all. We're also hearing from Secretary Duffy, who said that he had briefed the president and he had briefed Governor Shapiro. We are expecting to hear from Governor Shapiro shortly. You heard Mayor Parker say he was on his way. The secretary says, I've offered full support of the Department of Transportation to the governor and local officials. As we know, FAA and NTSB will be investigating. We also know ATF is on scene. We also got this statement from the American Red Cross. Our hearts go out to all those affected by the tragic incident. A team of trained Red Cross disaster workers is on scene to help those who have been displaced. Again, we know that at least 3 homes were impacted by fire. We're working with our city, state, and federal partners to assess any other needs that we can assist with. Any other updates can come from the Office of Emergency Management. We have been updating you with statements that they have been saying. And I think people are listening as we watch the crowds sort of start to dissipate from where Aaron is anyway, and leave the area, be safe, stay away from all the debris. And Office of Emergency Management was very concerned in the very beginning when we had the black smoke with what could potentially be in the air, and they were telling people, get inside and close your doors. Fred and Jackie?
All right, Tracy, thank you. And I want to go back to what Claudia was talking about in terms of just the experts she was talking to about the company that was running this air ambulance flight. 600 to 700 flights a year, one of the most experienced air ambulance companies in the Americas, a well-maintained plane. And when you put that with Arthur Woken in his account of this Learjet 55 being a durable plane, a plane that flies long distances with excellent pilots, and what he said about the pitch of that plane going down, this sounds like an aberration, like something that just wouldn't normally happen, and very troubling to see. Clearly, as we heard from our aviation expert, the instrumentation on this plane was duplicated, and there were many measures in place, checklists that these pilots go through to avoid any kind of malfunction or anything out of the ordinary, and they're well-trained pilots that spend many hours on these flights.
And if I can let our control room know, the button was pressed down, so I was unable to hear a lot of what was being said. I was hearing the control room where the producers are for about a minute of that time. So yeah. I believe that is fixed now.
Yeah, but we are seeing video of this play out over and over again, where you can see the impact of that crash and the reaction from people on the ground. And even at this hour, we're still seeing folks who are shaken and devastated by the impact of this crash, and we're hearing responses and reaction from federal officials. We heard a response from the president and from the governor and from several local leaders here in Philadelphia.
And when we hear descriptions from witnesses like Aaron Baskerville spoke to, saying that he saw devastating scenes. People were describing the cars on fire, and then someone who witnessed a man walking away from the wreckage in flames. All of those point to the devastation and fear of what we will learn over the next few hours and over the next couple of days about the injuries and casualties involved in this.
NBC 10's Siobhan McGurl is on the ground now with more from her vantage point of what we're seeing at this hour. Siobhan?
Hey guys, we moved back into one of the neighborhoods, more the residential area. We know just across on the other end, that's Cottman Ave. So we know that this crash happened in a really populated area with businesses, but also homes. These homes are right near where this happened, affected now. We spoke with some people. You can see just on the other side of the barrier, we've seen people go in and out to grab some items. They told us that right now their homes don't have any power or gas. They're not sure when they're going to be able to return. I'll also tell you on this neighborhood road that the police have been asking, do you live here? Do you live here? Otherwise, they're not letting people access this area. It is shut down to road traffic. We have the barriers up. We've also seen some people as they walk by. I spoke with another woman who lives just a block down, so really close to where this crash happened. She said she was actually inside with her family celebrating a birthday. When the explosion happened, they stepped outside, kids with them, to see fire, to see the smoke. Just extreme moments of fear, she said, trying to understand exactly what happened. We've heard a lot of that from people tonight, trying to wrap their heads around exactly what they saw and just how close this is, hitting close to home for so many, as you can see, in such a residential area here. We're on St. Vincent again, just on the other side of Cottman. A little bit earlier, I also spoke with a man who was at Cottman and Roosevelt at a gas station there, and he described an extremely frightening scene. He says that he looked up, he saw the sky again turn bright with what he said seemed like an explosion, and then he closed the door because there was debris coming his way. I know we've talked about that debris. He says he gave it a moment, and then he ran toward the flames, he told us. He said that he could see cars on fire, homes on fire, just incredibly terrifying. He said he was still in shock as he was telling me what he saw. We'll take a soundbite from him. You can hear just how emotional it was and what he saw in those moments.
I was at the door over here at the gas station, and all you heard was this loud bang when the whole building started shaking. You literally, right here, you could see a whole flames just engulf inside in the sky. Like, it was just huge fire, huge fireball going in the sky. So I tried to, keep the door shut because debris was flying over here, and customers were trying to run outside and stuff. I didn't want any of our customers to get, hurt by any objects flying in the air. So I tried to keep the door shut. After a while, I opened it up and I went to go run over there to see, what exactly happened. And a lot of people over here in shock, just scared and running and screaming. People were crying.
Again, shock, fear, you heard it there. That man also told me he was feeling a lot of sadness. He said that he ran that way because he wanted to do something to help, but when he got there, he said there wasn't much to do. He didn't know what to do other than he was there so early that he was seeing the first responders arrive on scene, and he said that he was just pointing to the firefighters, here, here, and that was what he was feeling in the moment. Again, just still in shock as he recounted that to me. Back here live in this area, again, we're on St. Vincent, just on the other side of Cottman. These homes affected. You can see some people walking here. Police have been asking people if they're in the area, hey, do you live here? Where's your home? That kind of thing. They're asking people to stay away from this area, as we heard the mayor ask people a little bit earlier today to stay away from the area. It is quiet here. You'll see people walk by every once in a while, but it's pretty quiet. And again, police have this road shut down to traffic as well. Just one more time, I want to show you, they have these barriers up to the actual streets here with homes where these people live. And the people we spoke to, they were going in to get belongings. They told us again that their power and gas shut off in their home. Not sure when it's going to get back on. And the one man I spoke with said he's not really sure where he's going to stay tonight. So a lot still up in the air, so much uncertainty, so much shock here, such frightful moments, and a lot of people just still trying to process what happened and wait to learn more about what's unfolding here. Still pretty active, guys. Send it back to you.
And Siobhan, you have heard some unbelievable eyewitness accounts as well since you've been on that scene for the last couple of hours, right?
Unbelievable. I mean, you heard the man at the gas station and how he ran. Another man I spoke to, he said he was walking, he was a couple blocks down, but he was walking right on the boulevard when this happened. And he said that the first thing he noticed was just the sky light up. And then he saw what he said appeared to be an explosion, and he pulled out his camera and he showed me his video, and it was just the sky filled with smoke. He kept on telling me, so shocking that it happened at all, but that it happened so close. And again, we've talked about it all night, but just so densely populated, all of these homes there, those businesses. I spoke with another woman. She told me that she she's a delivery driver, and she usually drives around that time. And she says it's the busiest time. It's incredibly busy in this area. So again, people just in shock. And that woman who I spoke with, who was having the birthday party, and then to step outside and be pulled away from that and instantly see, have to run towards fire and try to explain to her kids what was going on. Incredible stories, and tough to wrap your mind around out here, guys.
Siobhan, thank you for that. Right now, we want to go back to Aaron Baskerville, who is near that scene as well, with a councilman. Aaron, what do you have?
Yeah, Jackie, we just ran into Councilman Anthony Phillips right now. I know we're waiting for the governor to talk. I know you're just arriving on scene. What are people telling you? What do you want people to know?
You know, first, let's just say that hearts go out to all the families, the victims that are going through this right now. But what we've been hearing from residents, I mean, my district that I represent is literally 3 blocks away from this tragedy, and residents are wondering, literally, like, what's next? You know, the plane crash that happened earlier this week.
Well, I don't mean to interrupt you. I don't mean to interrupt you. Right now, the mayor is going to talk. I believe the governor's there too. Let's go to them, and we'll come back to us in a little bit.
Okay.
On Cottman Avenue, and it did occur shortly after 6 p.m. Again, we have no reports on the number of fatalities, so we are asking everyone for their thoughts and prayers for all who may have been impacted and affected by this tragedy. Several dwellings and vehicles were also impacted, and so we are urging people, particularly those families who live in the surrounding area, to please stay home if possible. If you see any debris, and those who are conducting the investigations have repeated consistently, please do not touch anything because it is still an active investigation. Just call 911, please, if you see anything. Investigators and all of our federal, state, and local partners are working as expeditiously as possible during this very difficult time. New information that we want to share with you, that shelter is now available at the Samuel Fells High School located at 5500 Langdon Street. Samuel Fells High School, 5500 Langdon Street. If anyone has been impacted and you need shelter and support, it is readily available for you. In terms of our federal and state partners, I want to say a special thank you to the NTSB. They are here on site now. The FAA, the Pennsylvania State Police, Pennsylvania DEP, of course our police and fire departments, and OEM. I am here with Governor Shapiro. We've been in constant contact since it started. You'll be hearing from him shortly. But I also want to say a special thank you to our additional partners who we have spoken with, our federal leaders, U.S. Senators Fetterman and McCormick. Thank you so very much. All hands on deck. They wanted to make sure any and everything that we needed from the federal government, those supports and services are available. Congressman Evans, Boyle, and Scanlon, our congressional delegation, a special thank you to each of you for your support. I also need to affirm that locally here, Senator Joe Picozzi, Rep. Solomon, Reps. Nielsen, Doherty, who represents this area, and Bellman, Commissioner Dealey, and Councilmember Driscoll was present. If there was ever a time when we needed to affirm what the One Philly philosophy means, the time is now, and I'm very proud about how our federal, state, and all of our local partners are working hard to deal with this tragedy. I now want to turn it over to our governor and to say thank you, Governor, for your support and being here with us this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. The mayor preaches about One Philly. She talks about a unified approach to governing every day. What you're seeing here is a unified response to an awful aviation disaster. For as awful as that aviation disaster was, tonight we also saw the best of Philly. We saw neighbor helping neighbor. We saw Pennsylvanians looking out for one another. I want to reaffirm the comments the mayor said about all of the different agencies working together, and I want to especially thank and salute Philly Fire and Philly Police, who did an extraordinary job this evening. We know that there will be loss in this region, and we want to offer our thoughts and our serious prayers for those who are grieving at this moment. The mayor knows, and I want you all to know, that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania stands firmly with our partners in the city. We have, at the request of Commissioner Bethel, 45 state troopers who are on the ground right here in Northeast Philly. We have 25 members of our PennDOT team who are here right now. We have members of the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Authority who are here, including our director, Randy Padfield, who joins me behind here. We also have members of DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, who are here to make sure that any hazardous materials are addressed. And as you heard the mayor reference, we're joined by several state representatives and senators. I want to thank them. They will make sure that whatever is needed for this community gets to this community. I also spoke earlier this evening with the United States Secretary of Transportation, Secretary Duffy, who offered his full support to Northeast Philly. And as the mayor alluded to, he has dispatched 4 members of the FAA to Philly, and there are 4 members of NTSB on their way as well. We have all the resources that we need. And again, as the mayor always says, one Philly, we are unified in our approach to deal with this emergency. And again, I'll just end by sharing my prayers, the prayers of my wife, Lori, our First Lady, and on behalf of 13 million Pennsylvanians, we are all here for Northeast Philly tonight in this very, very difficult moment. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you all. When we have additional information to report, we will come back and give another briefing. But now we want to let our federal, state, and local partners do their jobs and go to work. We'll report back to you when we have more information. Thank you all so very much for your patience and understanding. Thank you. Great job.
One of the headlines coming out of this news conference you just heard from Mayor Sherelle Parker and Governor Shapiro, a shelter is now available at Samuel Fells High School in the 5500 block of Langdon Street for people who have had to be evacuated and need shelter immediately. You heard the mayor thank the NTSB, the FAA, and state police who were on the scene. The governor lauded the united response to an awful aviation accident that we're seeing, saying neighbors are helping neighbors. He thanked and saluted Philly fire and police. He also said that there were 45 state troopers on the ground, 25 PennDOT members, and members of the state emergency management, as well as members of the Department of Environment Protection.
And we heard from Governor Shapiro saying, as awful as this aviation disaster is, he said, we saw the best of Philly. And we heard that from many of our reporters there on the scene, the eyewitness accounts of how everyone was helping out and shocked at what they had seen. But Governor Shapiro is saying it's one Philly, which of course is the mantra from Mayor Parker. He saw that and he knows there will be loss, but his thoughts and prayers are with those who are grieving. Of course, we don't have details yet on the number of casualties, but except for on the plane, those 6 people on board.
We're going to go now to NBC 10's Aaron Baskerville, who we interrupted to go to that news conference with the governor and the mayor. Aaron, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here, Fred. Councilman Anthony Phillips had to leave at that moment, so we don't have him live anymore. But I can tell you he is very passionate, and he is demanding answers right now. I asked him a question. He said it's beyond, his answer was it's beyond unnerving. He called it sickening, what happened out here. He said he's been getting a whole bunch of calls from his constituents. This is his district right over here, close to the area where we're at, Cottman and Bustleton, and he's demanding answers. He says we're at a crossroads right now in aviation, and we're going to turn around some of his comments for later on over the next hour or so. So you're going to hear directly from him, and you're not going to need me to paraphrase exactly what he said. But once again, we're just going to kind of meander down here once again just to kind of give you some of the view over here. That's the parking lot over there where you see a lot of first responders and a lot of people still stationed out here as well. The crowd has dropped significantly because of maybe the weather or just, quite frankly, being out here for several hours watching this whole thing unfold. The smoke that was billowing from some of the buildings over there as well is not happening anymore, so that's a good sign. But I've been talking to you guys about the eyewitness accounts that we've been hearing from people. Some of those things that just, you know, have you shaking your head because you can't believe what folks are telling you. We're in one of the neighborhoods that are nestled in off of Cottman where some of the power was turned off. We happened to talk to a woman named Dolores, and she heard it. She said she heard the explosion. She felt the ground and the homes around her shaking. And let's just hear right from her. Here's what she had to say just a little while after this plane crash.
I saw a bright light in the sky, and then my window shook, and then I just ran up there, and I saw, all I could see was about 8 or 10 cars on Cottman Avenue just burning and just popping with explosions. And they said it was a plane crash, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, there's no way that's a plane crash. And when I got up to Leonard and Cottman, I saw cars just all over Cottman Avenue engulfed in flames and popping, I guess. I didn't actually see the plane, I just saw the cars.
So you're just hearing right from her right there, you know, quite frankly, folks just saying she can't believe what she was hearing. She can't believe what she was seeing, that the plane actually crashed in her neighborhood, and Cottman at one point was engulfed in flames, and all sorts of cars were engulfed in flames, and she was hearing all those different popping noises and things like that. What we're going to do right now is that we're going to take a moment. We're going to probably go back, hopefully, to our home base over here, and we're going to get you that sound from Councilman Anthony Phillips that I think everybody should hear, and we'll come back to you guys shortly so you guys can hear directly from the councilman who just arrived on scene here, literally just about 5 minutes ago, guys.
All right, Aaron, thank you for getting that for us. As we heard from Mayor Sherelle Parker, there are many people who are going to need shelter as a result of this plane crash. There on your screen, you can see what that location is. It's Samuel Fells High School, 5500 Langdon Street. We don't know the number of people impacted, the number of people who will require this shelter, but we're thinking it might be many when we see the video of those flames and the eruption of that fireball. Absolutely, and we've seen accounts from our early reporting on the ground that PGW, PECO, and the Water Department were on the scene, and we heard Aaron Baskerville report that he had seen at least a block where they had their electricity cut off, so we know that folks are unable to be in their home tonight. We know early also in our reporting that one of the biggest messages that the city and investigators wanted us to take to the public was that they needed to close their windows and close their doors to get out of that smoke because of the fire and the crash in the area. And we know that that plane before takeoff had been fully fueled for a flight that was going to Missouri. We know that there were 6 people on board, according to the FAA. And you're seeing new images now of this plane. And this is exactly what the mayor was talking about, wanting people to not touch anything, police trying to evacuate everyone because that whole area is part of the debris field of the investigation that is underway right now. So this has been the effect. People have been evacuated, and we have that shelter now, the city announcing that is available to people who need a place to stay. To see something like this right in your backyard, not just the flames and the thick smoke, but that, which you never see. Part of a plane, and exactly what we're seeing in this video, people getting much too close to it, trying to take videos of it and pictures of it. We saw Shaira had what was a piece of the plane right there on the ground in a strip mall parking lot. And the mayor urging people not to touch it, not to get close to it. If you see anything, to call 911. They don't want this because of the danger associated with it. And it's an investigative scene. It is an investigative scene, and they will carry all the clues that they get from all of these debris pieces that we're seeing people near. This is why they've been pushing people back. It seemed they were pushing people back farther and farther
at the very beginning of the response. Let's go now to NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Brittany Shipp, who's been tracking the forecast for us this evening.
Yeah, we've been looking at what the observations were at the time that this plane took off, and we also want to paint the picture and kind of give you the logistics here. The plane did take off from the Northeast Philadelphia Airport, which is 3.5 miles roughly from the crash site here. So you can see it's 3.5 to 4 miles, which means we already know that the plane was in the air less than 1 minute before it came crashing down here. So we also like to look at what were the observations at the time. Of course, we know that it was raining most of the day. It was cloudy. We like to look at some of the visibility reported to the airport. This was the latest observation taken before the crash, which was about 10 minutes before. And the observation was visibility was down to 6 miles. And typically when we see dangerous levels of low visibility, you have those levels closer to 1/4 of a mile. So again, this was not incredibly dangerous, but yes, the visibility was decreased. Our wind speeds, we did not have a wind advisory. We did not have wind gusts upwards of 40, 50 miles per hour. Today, our wind speeds were sustained out of the southwest at 10 miles per hour. The strongest wind gust we saw today was around 20 to 25 miles per hour here. We still have rain coming down actively at this time. We are just about to see the clearing edge of some of this moisture. It will continue to track off the coast. We have probably another hour or two left of these light rain showers coming down here. We have been watching the low clouds throughout most of the day, which does make it a bit more difficult to see, to take off, to land planes, especially small aircraft. You can see widespread cloud coverage is what we've been dealing with most of the day. These are actually our cameras that normally overlook the city. You can barely make out the Jefferson building here. I just show you this to illustrate that, yes, we have been dealing with cloudy conditions throughout most of today, low-hanging clouds. You can see slightly decreased visibility at Philadelphia International Airport. But overall, when we're talking about Northeast Philly, our visibility was at 6 miles. Right now it's down to 5 miles. We're still seeing light rain showers. Our rain totals for the entire day are only going to range between 1/3 of an inch up to 1 inch. So this is not even an incredibly strong system bringing a lot of rain or flooding rains or anything like this. This is a typical rainstorm that we're dealing with throughout today. Our wind speeds even right now are still ranging between about 5 to 12 miles per hour sustained. We possibly saw wind gusts around 20, 25 miles per hour at the most. We've turned on our radar shot here. You can see there is still rain coming down actively in Northeast Philly, but again, it is on the lighter side. At this time, we will send it back to you, but yes, rain is going to continue coming down for the next hour or two, but we are definitely at the tail end of this rain system.
Brittany, thank you for that. Right now, we want to go to Siobhan McGurl, who is there on the scene getting eyewitness accounts, as the rest of our reporters have as well. Siobhan.
Hey, right now we're showing you more of the neighborhood perspective. So we're at Bustleton and St. Vincent. Cottman is just on the other end over there. So if you're familiar with the area, that's where the businesses are, Roosevelt Mall area. If you come over this way here on St. Vincent, this gives you a look at the neighborhood, some of the homes affected in this area. You can see police line this road all the way down to the boulevard, down to Roosevelt Boulevard area. Police have this area shut down to all road traffic. They're also not letting people really walk by. If they are going by, they're saying, where do you live? And they're letting people go into their homes if needed to get belongings. We know people who were going into their homes, they told us that power and gas are off to their homes, most of them in a little bit more near where this crash happened. So people are going in to gather their belongings while they can. Others not allowed to stay on this street for long at all. We were even asked to leave this area. Police have this area pretty tight. They're asking people to stay away. While we were here, we were speaking to some people who were able to go in, some people who saw this happen. Again, we've been talking about just these intense moments of fear and shock, people who saw this happen. Some people describing stepping out of their homes just to see the fire. We've heard people talk about the homes on fire, the cars on fire. Just catastrophic scenes. I just spoke with another man. He was in the shopping plaza, stepped outside, and then just ran the other direction. He's actually walking around right now because he can't get to his car, so he's waiting for some friends to pick him up over here. Of course, debris all in that area near the shopping center. And then a little bit earlier, I spoke with a man who is at the gas station just maybe a block and a half from where the crash happened, and he saw it happen. He closed the door because of all the debris coming his way, and then he says he actually ran towards it, could see the the fire, could see all of that debris. A terrifying scene. He described the response that happened almost immediately. Here's what he told me.
The Philadelphia Police and Philadelphia Fire Department did a heck of a job. They got here very quick, and they assisted this whole situation very fast. They did a really good job. But they blocked everything off. People kept trying to walk, towards the smoke. It was black smoke. You could smell like the jet fuel, and people were like walking towards it. So they're trying to tell people like back up, back up, back up. So they did a really good job in assisting everybody to, get away from the scene and everything.
Yeah, praise for these first responders who have been working for hours. We saw that immediate response when they first got on scene. It has been hours now. Right now we're seeing a lot of these officers, again, keeping people off this street unless they live in the area, letting them go into their homes. You can see an officer escorting a person down right now. We've seen this happen. If they live in the area, the officers are letting the people in just to get to their belongings. Most of the homes, right now we're more towards Bustleton, so we're seeing some of the homes here with the lights on, but if you go in a little bit deeper into this street, that's closer to the crash, and there we've seen a lot of the homes. Again, they told me no power, no gas. So, we've heard the mayor ask people to stay away from this area. It seems as though people are heeding that. I'll tell you, if you drive around, though, these roads still blocked off, and even this one close to foot traffic. Guys, that's the scene here right now. We'll send it back to you.
Siobhan, we just heard from that gentleman you interviewed praising the response. When you think about it, it really is remarkable that crews were able to respond as quickly as they did, considering how bottlenecked traffic was and really always is in that area during rush hour, Northeast Philly there.
Absolutely. I spoke with a woman earlier. She said, not only is this a busy area, a populated area, that was one of the busiest times for this area. And he said that response came in immediate. He said he felt helpless. He wanted to do something to help. And what he said he was able to do is just say to the firefighters, here, and point in that direction from what he was seeing, running to the scene immediately there. But yes, absolutely praising the first responders, and they continue to be here, and they will be here, I'm sure, for much longer, for hours. We've heard the mayor say that it was just the first briefing of many, so it continues.
We know many people were trying to get to their homes. We, of course, announced the shelter that is available. Did you encounter anyone, Siobhan, who was fearful that they would need resources, that they would need shelter, not knowing the status of their home?
I did. I spoke with the man who was going in, and they had a backpack, and another woman had a bag, and they went in to get belongings. And again, they told me that they didn't have electricity and they didn't have gas. They said thankfully they didn't see any damage on their home.
Much needed, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Siobhan McGurl,
thank you.
Thank you. And during the news conference with Mayor Parker and Governor Shapiro, we got an idea of just how many people are on this scene and how many people were trying to access it. We know that there were 35 state troopers there, 25 members of PennDOT, members of the Office of Emergency Management at the state level, and the member of the Department of Environmental Protection, because of what we're seeing right there, the plane, part of the plane on the ground in a parking lot, pieces of a plane strewn everywhere. So the mass response far beyond firefighters and police crews of who had to get close to that scene.
Yeah, and the mayor and every official that we've heard from this evening telling people to stay away from this area. Obviously, we've seen reporters from the beginning of our reporting. We saw lots of foot traffic, and the foot traffic has died down quite a bit because they've closed off these areas. You're not seeing this many scenes where you're seeing a lot of people standing around close to the investigative area, but this is exactly why. These are pieces of evidence that will help them piece together why this plane went down in the manner that it went down and exactly what happened leading up to this crash. We want to go now to NBC 10's Aaron Baskerville, who is standing by with more of what he's seeing out there. Aaron, I see lots of first responders and police presence behind you there.
Yeah, I mean, the police presence is still here, and they are still keeping us and others away from certain areas, certain parking lots, certain roads. So the work, of course, continues. The crowds are dying down significantly out here as well. So I know that's what some of the first responders, the mayor, wanted the folks to leave this area. I had people also just messaging me on social media that live right here and live close by, and they're basically also telling me a new account that the smell is really strong in those homes that are right near the site of the plane crash. They're saying there's an overwhelming smell. So that kind of lends to what you were saying, Fred, in terms of keeping your windows closed because of smoke and things like that. But it seems like there's a strong smell obviously taken over there, because there are several people hitting me up. But just a little while ago, we were talking to Councilman Anthony Phillips. His district is right around here. He had showed up just about 20 minutes ago or so and was talking to us live before we had to go to the mayor's press conference and the governor's press conference. He had all sorts of concerns. He wanted some action. He said he was hearing from constituents who saw the plane crash, who were in this area, wondering what happened, why did this happen, and kind of what they maybe needed next in terms to get through the rest of the night. Here's a little bit from the councilman when I asked him a question just about what happened here and what folks witnessed. Let's be straight up. Let's be blunt. How unnerving is this? This plane goes down in this area with so many people.
Oh, it's beyond unnerving. It's actually sickening. It's hurting and it's disgusting. The way when I heard about it, it hit me in the heart. Like it was like a gut punch, right? And right now, that is what people are feeling. They're like, what is next? Like we're at a state where we want to have safety and security where we live, and right now there's uncertainty of whether or not we're making sure everything is safe, that we are used to being safe. And I think that's the way a lot of residents are feeling. And right now I'm here to make sure that, you know, we're there for them and let them know we're going to be okay. This is going to be tough to get through and it's devastating, but we're going to get through this somehow in Philadelphia.
Man, I mean, there's not much else that he wanted to say right there. He is not mincing words. He is not holding back. He called it sickening. He called it a gut punch. He's also describing kind of what other folks were saying to him that were calling his office, calling members of his staff to find out exactly what's going on. So you can be assured that he's going to be asking a whole bunch of questions to folks in leadership, to folks who are part of the investigation, to, I'm sure, those with the FAA and others who will be on the ground here trying to figure out exactly what happened over the next few days and trying to make sure something like this, even though obviously this is a tragic accident, he wants to make sure that nothing like this happens in a heavily populated area like here near Cottman and Bustleton, you know, the boulevard in Cottman, as the work continues here throughout the night and certainly the next few days as they piece this puzzle together here. But from where I'm standing, it's still pretty much of the same. A whole bunch of first responders, a whole bunch of firefighters, except for the crowd. The crowd has died down significantly, guys.
Maybe in part because of that urgency from people there, police, firefighters, the mayor encouraging everyone to dissipate, the rain as well, the weather, possibly an impact on that. But the good news is that the scene is quiet where you are. Not long ago, it was not. It was very busy and frenetic there.
Yeah, I mean, a whole bunch of...
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say you're correct, and hopefully people heed this advice throughout the rest of the night, and hopefully folks who do have homes to go to and are fortunate enough to go back to their home tonight can go back, and hopefully the folks who are going to need that help, the folks who don't have power, electricity, possibly don't have a home tonight, are going to take some of these shelters and other places that will be opening up to help them out, guys.
Aaron Basker live in Northeast Philadelphia, right near the scene of that plane crash.
Yeah, we've been reporting now that this was a medical jet that was flying, that was taking off, and it was in the air for roughly 30 seconds, traveling roughly 4 miles away from where it took off before this crash happened. And from every video that you see the angle, the pitch at which that plane is falling. We spoke to an aviation expert who talked about how troubling that is and how unusual that would be for a Learjet 55 because of the durability of that plane, because of the instrumentation on that plane. It's duplicated. It's usually flown with 2 pilots, and there must have been a malfunction for something like that to happen. We know that there were 4 crew members, including a minor patient and guardian on that plane, a pilot, a co-pilot, a physician, and a paramedic. The minor female patient had just successfully had a medical procedure performed and was headed back to Mexico on that plane. That plane operated by an air ambulance company that we were told is one of the most experienced air ambulance companies in America, operating anywhere between 600 and 700 flights a year. The plane, well maintained and durable for this kind of weather, we're told. It had freshly been fueled up before takeoff, which likely was the cause for concern when it crashed with that big plume of smoke and that big ball of fire. And ever since then, from the very beginning of this investigation, police and first responders had been pushing back the people who lived in the neighborhood. Some folks having to evacuate and others just being pushed back, cutting down on the foot traffic and the vehicle traffic because the debris field of this crash is widespread. The video we're showing you showing the pieces of the plane, and we're hearing from the governor and the mayor and law enforcement not to tamper with or pick up anything, which is why they were trying to clear that scene. But just, I mean, every time we see this, all I can think about first and foremost are the people on that plane. These angel flights, as they're called, this doesn't happen every day with this. These are usually successful flights. They're taken very often, and they're necessary for successful medical treatment. And so it's unusual for something like this to happen. But also the folks who live in this neighborhood to be out and about, just minding their business on a Friday evening and seeing this and wondering what it was. I mean, there may be numerous thoughts that go through your mind if you're driving around and this happens. You feel the ground underneath you shake. You hear that explosion. And we've heard the accounts from our reporters on the scene, talking to witnesses and people who live in the neighborhood, just how startled and disturbed and shaken that people were who witnessed this.
And there's no time for anyone to prepare for any of this. Just as quickly as that plane went up, it went down right there in that residential area. We want to go to Tracy Davidson right now in our newsroom with new information for us tonight. Tracy.
So we're seeing that plane just sort of drop out of the air. I'm going to take you back to when the plane took off from Northeast Airport. FlightAware shows the plane took off from Northeast Airport 6:06, and about 31 seconds later, there's no record of movement. See, look at the flight path on the screen, the green line right there. That's how far the plane made it, about 1,600 feet in the air. We also have recordings from air traffic control from the moment the plane took off, and we'll walk you through that. Let's listen to this initial communication.
Medevac Med Service 056 on departure, turn right heading 290, runway 24, clear for takeoff, wind 25010.
All right, that's when the plane is preparing for departure. Next clip that you're going to hear is when the plane was cleared to take off.
Medevac Med Service 056 affirmative. On departure, turn right heading 290, runway 24, clear for takeoff.
All right, and then shortly after that, air traffic control makes contact with the plane on departure. You'll hear the pilot respond.
Medevac Med Service 056, contact Philly departure 123.8.
123.8, Mike Tango Sierra 056 Medevac. Thank you, good day.
He says, thank you, good day. After takeoff, air traffic control tries then again to make contact with the pilot, and you'll hear they get no response from the Medevac Med Service.
Medevac Med Service Northeast Tower. Medevac Med Service 056 Northeast Tower, you on frequency?
Medevac Mike Tango Sierra 056 Northeast Tower, how do you hear this transmission?
So three tries to get them. There are a few more attempts from air traffic control to make contact with the plane. Next, you hear air traffic control refer to the plane as a lost aircraft.
Approach to runway 24, what's going on down there?
Digit 765, we have a lost aircraft. We're not exactly sure what happened, so we're trying to figure it out. For now, the field is going to be closed, so no inbounds or outbounds probably.
Air traffic control says they're grounding all flights, no flights coming in or out. Earlier this evening, we spoke with Arthur Walk. He's an aviation expert, talking about all the factors that could have brought this plane down so quickly after takeoff. He said nothing about the weight of the plane could have had an impact. Let's listen.
The airplane was at a relatively light weight, only 6 people aboard. That's not a lot. And even if you add the equipment, that's not a lot either. So nothing about the numbers of people or the equipment on board or the way it was configured would give you any indication why the airplane descended in the manner it did.
Again, we've seen the video and we know the timeline. It was about 30 seconds in the air before it went down. Jacqueline and Fred?
Tracy, thank you. And this is a time, of course, where people are shaken, they're unnerved and at a loss for how this happened. A lot of people need prayer and focus. We want to go to Paul Randolph right now, who is a Pennsylvania State Police chaplain. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Yes, so horrific tonight, but if I can be of some help, that's what we're here for.
People definitely need comfort. You have seen devastation like this before. What is your advice in moments like this?
Well, I think folks need to realize that the closer you are to what happened tonight, so if you were a neighbor of where the crash took place, if you were working in that area, if you were in your car and you saw the crash, you have a much higher potential to have some reaction to this that is going to cause stress. And I want to emphasize that these are normal reactions to an abnormal, horrific event that they've been a part of.
Yeah.
So
this is.
Go ahead, Fred.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
An event like this is part of what we call the terrible 10, where people are going to have stress reactions, and they can involve how they think, their emotions, some of their behaviors. They may have some physical reaction to it, and even some spiritual reaction. And these kinds of reactions can start from the moment they witness the incident to a few hours later, to 1 or more days later, or even a week or more. And this is to be expected, and it doesn't mean that the person is going crazy or they're losing their mind or there's something wrong with them. Again, they're having a normal reaction to a very abnormal, horrific event.
And you touched on this a little bit. Clearly, we are in the early moments of this. People are still processing this. But what is your advice as we move on past this day, past this evening? What advice do you give to people in terms of what we need to do to process this over the long term?
Yeah, certainly. Well, to first of all, realize that you're going to have some extra anxiety. You're going to be maybe having some mood swings. You're going to be having stress about things that you might normally not be stressed about. You're going to be experiencing grief and various other kinds of reactions. You may have flashbacks. You may have trouble sleeping. And so realize that these are normal reactions to abnormal events, and then some things that you can do to begin to help yourself. Do not isolate yourself from your family and friends. Stay connected. Talk to others. Talk about what you experienced. Try to get as much rest as you may need. And we find that in the first 24, 48 hours, doing some strenuous exercise with some periods of relaxation often helps people. Try to get back into your schedule as much as you can. Eat well-balanced meals. Avoid alcohol or other medications unless they're prescribed by your physician. It's okay to feel lousy and to share that you feel lousy with others. Some people find writing a journal is helpful, particularly if they're having trouble sleeping at night. And realize that the recurring thoughts, dreams, or flashbacks are normal. Don't try to fight them. They should decrease over time. And you should avoid making any major life decisions right now because you're stressed. and this is not the time to do that. If you are friends of someone who was close to this incident, some things you can do is be a good listener, offer to spend time with them, offer your help but don't force it, reassure them that you care. Maybe they need some help with some everyday tasks, or they need a place to stay tonight or for the next few nights. Don't take your anger personally if they kind of lash out. Avoid telling them meaningless cliches, and just let them know that you care and you're there to help them. And I would say people should expect these kinds of reactions to last up to 4 to 6 weeks, and they should be dissipated by then. If they continue past that point, that's when you want to seek out some professional help from a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a trained counselor who's experienced with post-traumatic stress or critical incident stress.
Yeah, we've heard from people who have been experiencing this and who've given us firsthand accounts of everything that has happened this evening. Paul Randolph, thank you so much for your insight. Thank you.
Good evening, and my thoughts and prayers are with everyone involved.
Thank you.
Right now, we want to turn over to Claudia Vargas. You've been able to get important information about the flight, the plane.
Yes, we spoke with Jet Rescue Air Ambulance, which owns it's the company that owns the plane that crashed today. And they shared that they have really experienced pilots. These are pilots who fly more than 600 flights a year. The team that was there, it's unclear if they've flown out of Philadelphia before, but they said these are pretty routine flights that they take all the time. They mostly focus on international travel. And so, as we mentioned before, this was a child from Mexico who had been receiving life-saving care here in the U.S., had her guardian with her. And the flight crew was also Mexican nationals, and they were heading back. Now, the flight was going to Missouri first, and then from there, it was scheduled to go down to Tijuana, Mexico, where that was the final destination. And we have a little bit more detail from the spokesperson for the company.
This was an ordinary course flight with a seasoned crew, with a very dedicated medical team, and we are just, it obviously has caught us by surprise. We are shocked and dismayed, and we send our condolences. Our hearts are with the patient, their family, any innocent bystanders that may have been hurt on the ground. Of course, the families of our pilot, co-pilot, physician, and paramedic. It's a great loss. It's a very great loss. These people work every day to save lives, and it is just unfortunate that the plane went down.
You can just hear the stress there. They're still in shock. They're still processing what happened and just looking for answers to see what the NTSB can determine happened here.
Yeah. So sad that she made that flight to get life-saving care here to save her from Mexico, and then this happens.
Yeah. Unfortunate.
Awful. Claudia, thank you. Right now, we want to go back to Siobhan McGurl, who is live on the scene in this area of Northeast Philadelphia, where rescue crews are sorting through all of this, as they will for days and likely weeks to come. Siobhan.
We've been meeting a lot of people out here who saw this happen, who were in this area when this crash happened. Many of them struggling to put into words exactly what they saw and how they were feeling in those moments. You can see it's still active here right now. We're just a block away from Cottman. So where all those businesses are, we're on 1 block away. We're back on St. Vincent, more of this residential area. You can see a lot of police here. They still have the roads in this area blocked off. And here on St. Vincent, this is where many of the homes are, the people closest to the crash area here. Police are not even letting foot traffic down here. They're asking people, do you live here? While there are still a lot of police in the area, a lot of roads blocked, we are meeting some people again who saw the crash, who are still in the area. In fact, one man I spoke with was in the shopping center when this happened, and he's still here because his car is still over there. Obviously, you can't get to it right now, so much debris. He described a terrifying scene when this happened. He saw the fire, he saw the smoke. He says he ran, he tried to help, and now he's walking around not sure what to do next, still in shock. We'll share a soundbite, a little bit of what he said to me earlier.
The Philadelphia Police and Philadelphia Fire Department did a heck of a job. They got here very quick, and they assisted this whole situation very fast. They did a really good job. But they blocked everything off. People kept trying to walk, towards the smoke. It was black smoke. You could smell like the jet fuel, and people were like walking towards it. So they're trying to tell people like back up, back up, back up. So they did a really good job in assisting everybody to get away from the scene and everything.
Yeah, a lot of praise there again for first responders. You can see just down this road, so many still on the street, so much uncertainty here. As we were standing here not 5 minutes ago, a man walked up to us. He was also in the shopping center area, and he had dash cam, and he showed us jarring video the moment that the crash happened, and he said that debris actually came and hit their car. He said for the moment he froze and unsure what to do, and then he said he got out of his car and he saw an injured boy in front of him, quickly rushed to render aid and try to get that boy help. He said that he was taken off in a police car trying to get some help. But these are the stories people are describing. He said chaos in the moment. He had a difficult time even leaving the scene. Police said, get out, get out. He said that it took him 30 minutes to get out of the area after seeing that immediate crash, and he only lives, he said, about a mile away. Again, intense moments of fear that people are describing to us, and so many people still in shock tonight. Again, as police keep this road blocked off behind me. Guys, we'll send it back to you.
Siobhan, you described the man who saw debris hit his car. Siobhan, if you're still with us, and I'm sure people had no idea what was happening. Siobhan, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. In fact, in the dash cam video, you can hear they were having such a simple conversation about getting his daughter's ears pierced. And then all of a sudden, you can see the crash in the video. And then he said that he felt debris hit the car. And in that instant, so much changed. And he said he just froze for that moment, and then he jumped into action. He said that there was a car in front of him, and that debris had hit through the window. And he said that that's where he saw someone was injured and tried to help. But again, so many people feeling helpless in this situation, trying to do what they could. But just there was so much need here. The magnitude of this, hard to fully understand right now.
And while there were some people who were close enough or happened to see the plane descend so quickly from the air and crashing, I imagine there are a lot of people you spoke with who had no idea what was going on, especially in those early moments. They just knew that there was a huge police and fire response, and they smelled smoke and they saw the flames, but I imagine they didn't know what precipitated it.
Absolutely. Confusion. People were wondering what could have caused this. On edge, a lot of uncertainty. People were throwing out all different theories when they were talking to me earlier, only to learn what actually happened here.
And you also talked about the gentleman who could not get to his car. We know there was information about a shelter that is available to people there who can't get to their homes or to their vehicles. Residents aren't being given any notification about how long it could take before they're allowed back in to that perimeter, even if it's not that close to the crash site.
Yeah, no, the last person I spoke with said right now his power and his gas is off. He grabbed his belongings, and at that point he was unsure where he was going to go for the night. But thankfully, this shelter is now open. We have seen some people go in, and you'll just see them walk out with belongings at this point. So no update on when they'll be able to go back or when they'll have power or gas to this area. Still very active here. Police all around, and again, all down this block here.
Nobody would imagine that this would happen in their backyard. Heightened anxiety, heightened nerves after what just happened 2 days ago that is still so fresh in everyone's mind on a much larger scale. But this different because it's impacting a neighborhood, so residential and so many impacted that we'll learn about in the coming days.
And people have been bringing that up. People have been saying that they already kind of felt a little bit on edge. And now to see this happen here in this populated area, right in their backyards, in this residential area, just a lot of shock again tonight. I know I keep on saying that word, but it's the word that people keep on telling me.
Yeah. Understandable. And it'll take a long time before they get past this. The images people have seen, and then when they learn how many lives were impacted, and we still don't know how many casualties there are. Siobhan McGurl, live on the scene in Northeast Philadelphia. Thank you.
Yeah, the nature of the location of this crash is what makes it so difficult for investigators at this point, because it is a residential area and people live in on an investigation site, which is why people have had to evacuate. But you're seeing this video here of active flames of debris, just another example of how widespread this debris field is and how difficult it might be for investigators to get a handle on this. This is in the shopping center. You just saw the signs over to the left side of your screen with the stores in that shopping center area of where this happened. Again, this happening around 6 o'clock, and ever since then, police here in Philadelphia, all hands on deck, have closed off traffic at this intersection. And you also heard the governor talk earlier about the resources that were on the scene here from the state in terms of state police and PennDOT members and members of the PA Emergency Management Authority. We want to go now to NBC 10's Tracy Davidson, who's been tracking all of the statements coming in and just the timeline of everything happening with this crash. Tracy?
And we know one of the victims was on that plane was a little girl who was here for treatment. She was returning home to Mexico after receiving treatment for life-threatening illness, and apparently that treatment went well and she was returning home. And we are now hearing from the hospital where she was being treated. Shriners Children's has released a statement saying it's heartbroken to confirm that one of our pediatric patients and the child's mother were aboard that jet rescue air ambulance that crashed in Philadelphia this evening. The patient had received care from Shriners Children's Philadelphia and was being transported back to her home country in Mexico on a contracted air ambulance when the crash happened. Because of patient privacy concerns, we cannot say more about the patient and her family at this time. Our hearts and prayers go out to the families of the medical crew and pilots who were also lost in this tragic event, as well as all the people who were affected on the ground. And we are thankful to the first responders for their quick action. And that, again, is from Shriners Children's Hospital of Philadelphia.
Absolutely heartbreaking to hear those stories. Like any tragedy, the initial shock when we see the images, but then when we see that, a plane on the ground in half, and then the people who were on board that plane, a young girl returning to Mexico after receiving life-saving treatment for an illness here in the United States. Now from Tracy, we know that that hospital was Shriners Children's Hospital, being treated locally and then being transported to her home country of Mexico. In the middle of that, when this crash took place in a residential area, a place that was densely populated with businesses and homes. We don't know how many injuries there are beyond that plane.
And Jet Rescue Air Ambulance, which is the reputable company, one of the most experienced air ambulance companies in the Americas, at the helm of that flight. We heard from one of the spokespersons from that company talking about how experienced their pilots are. And we also heard from an aviation expert who talked about the plane itself, the Learjet 55, which is often used for this type of transport. It's not unusual for them to have their medical equipment loaded onto that plane. And because there were only 6 people aboard the plane with some additional medical equipment, it's unlikely that any of that would have had any impact on this crash. From what we know and from what we've gathered from listening to commentary from experts we've spoken to, that particular aircraft has duplicate instrumentation, 2 pilots who can control it. And for that plane to crash at that pitch is likely a red flag that there was a malfunction of some sort. The plane took off, and within 30 seconds of flight, 4 miles away from the area of takeoff, that's when the descent happened. And that's when this happened. This image we keep showing you from different angles, the crash happening in Northeast Philadelphia. And
in
so
the air, only 30 seconds.
The air, 30 seconds, yeah. And we know because of, we cover weather every day. We have meteorologists, and our meteorologist, Brittany Ship, is telling us about the conditions here. We know the visibility was 6 miles. The wind was between 5 and 20 miles per hour, low ceiling, all of that. But the aviation expert says because of this plane and because of the quality of flight, none of that would be a factor, according to him. It would likely be some kind of malfunction with the plane.
Yes, he was saying our pilots fly in conditions like this all the time, despite there being low visibility and cloud cover and a little bit of rain. this was different. When you see the pitch of that plane, 45-degree angle, he said it was out of control. And we can see that just by watching it, how fast that plane went down. He said it most likely has to be mechanical and a possible instrument failure. There was no reason for a descent of that speed other than a malfunction in that aviation expert's
And we know that people felt the impact of that crash on the ground under their feet. We heard lots of accounts of people feeling the shaking and obviously seeing cars on fire. And I mean, just a terrible scene in a residential area.
And we know that so many people will have to stay elsewhere because of this, because there were many people who lived right in the vicinity of this crash. We know that Samuel Fells High School is a shelter for those who need a place to stay. We heard that from Mayor Sherelle Parker in the news conference. Right now, we want to go to NBC 10's Francis Wang, who is live at a shelter and joins us now with more. Francis.
Jackie, Fred, we are at Samuel Fells High School. It is on 5500 Langdon Street. It's about 3 miles away from the crash site, about a 15-minute drive, depending on traffic and, of course, some of those road closures that are affecting so many people tonight. But as the two of you have been discussing there, so many people impacted, whether it's they can't get to their homes or they can't get to the car. We knew it was only a matter of time before the city announced some sort of shelter for those who have been displaced. And I can tell you the American Red Cross, they acted very quickly. They are working in partnership with the city's. We actually just saw about 5 or 6 Red Cross vehicles drive through here at the high school. It's a rather large site. You can see the school building behind me. The other side, we were able to look into what looked like a cafeteria with a lot of space, if that's where they're setting up. Again, this is very close to the crash site, so we are expecting a lot of people who maybe are just getting word, don't know where to go yet, or maybe even just need a place to reunite with their loved ones. This is going to be the place to go tonight. I can tell you also, we've been here before for other similar situations where the Red Cross has set up shelter here. So they're telling us that they're expecting to set up rather quickly. Again, the city just announced this to be the site not long ago, but we just saw a lot of those vehicles, including police, some of the Red Cross vehicles come through. So we're going to keep you updated as more people start to trickle in here at Samuel Fells High School. Again, it is on 5500 Langdon Street, a rather large parking lot. Langdon Street is just to my left here. There's only one entrance in, so if you are heading in this direction, just keep that in mind. This is a place where you can safely go tonight. Jackie, Fred, we'll keep you updated.
Francis, you may not be able to provide insight on this because it's likely you just arrived. Can you get an idea of how many people have arrived? Are you seeing a full parking lot with people pouring into that building or much lighter?
No, not yet. In fact, most of the vehicles we've been seeing come through were either Red Cross or police officers. It is a huge parking lot and it is completely empty right now. But as I mentioned, Red Cross is just now getting here. We do expect them to set up rather quickly. As I mentioned, they do have experience setting up shelters like this before, specifically here at Samuel Fells High School when people are displaced. Places to go. So we are hoping to get an update from them soon. It didn't seem like they knew how many people they were expecting. Even earlier, I know that the 2nd Police District headquarters, we stopped by over there because we were told that's where a lot of people were told to go if they needed any sort of information or they were trying to reunite with their loved ones. But the officers there were telling me no one had really showed up. And then we got word from the city through the mayor there that this would be the site for the night. So we're seeing some cars drive by unmarked, not sure if they're with the Red Cross or with police or just people looking for a place to go. But right after this, we're going to go check on the other side where most of the cars seem to be going, and we'll keep you updated.
Francis, thank you. I imagine so many people had to be at such a loss trying to arrive home. This happened during rush hour, 6 o'clock in the evening. And then a perimeter was set up so that paramedics could get to this crash site. And they were told they could not go beyond a certain distance. They couldn't get to their cars, they couldn't get to their homes, and they had to leave on foot. So I imagine many people have gone to be with family or with friends, and maybe later when word gets out about this shelter, because it is new, possibly they will arrive there, hopefully knowing that there is a place to stay.
Just the fear and frustration that they've had to deal with is incredible at this point. We want to turn now to NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Brittany Shipp, who's been tracking the conditions for us this evening. This has been a challenging time for investigators and for people who are out there at the scene.
Absolutely. When you hear about a plane crash, you immediately think about weather conditions or something maybe potentially mechanical happening. We did see in France's live shot that the rain is still coming down, so we just wanted to give you a quick update on where the rain is right now. You can see the clearing edge for parts of our suburbs up towards Berks County, Lehigh Valley, and the Poconos, but specifically over Philadelphia and parts of northeast Philly, we are definitely still seeing light but steady rain coming down. We do want to point out the logistics of this entire situation, which is we know this small plane crash or the small plane took off from northeast Philadelphia Airport, which is less than 4 miles from the site. We also know that it was traveling to the southwest and our wind speeds were coming in from the southwest as well. So a closer look at some of the observations around the time of the crash includes visibility, which was decreased, but not to a dangerous level. So we see visibility decrease to 6 miles per hour quite often, actually. It's only when we see visibility drop below half a mile down to a quarter of a mile that it becomes dangerous. And this was reported just before 6 p.m. Our wind speeds were out of the southwest at 10 miles per hour as well for this particular airport. And as we continue to zoom out the picture, it just shows there's been a steady amount of rain throughout the entire day here. We've also seen low-hanging clouds, low ceilings, lower visibility, which often makes it a bit more difficult to see and to take off and land. But again, not in that really dangerous category. And as we look at our satellite here, you can see widespread clouds still over our entire area. We've been showing you these cameras throughout most of the night, and it hasn't improved here. So behind these clouds is the Comcast Technology Center. Here you can just about make out the Jefferson sign. So again, this just really illustrates when we say low-hanging clouds and slightly decreased visibility. This is what it looks like on some of our cameras here. And we, of course, are showing you the Philadelphia International Airport, where, again, it's not completely clear. There is some decreased visibility. And if we look right now, we're down to 5 miles over Philadelphia. For northeast Philly, visibility is down to 5 miles as well. As we get closer to 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, we'll start to see the rain stopping. We'll start to see a little bit more clearing as we go through tomorrow. Our wind speeds are going to start picking up tomorrow as well. But right now, similar to what we saw throughout the day, our wind speeds were sustained anywhere between 5 to about 15 miles per hour with wind gusts closer to 20 miles per hour. Again, no wind advisory, nothing that's pushing us into the danger level. So this was a typical rainstorm that was setting up over the Philadelphia area throughout today. And we are just about done with the rain that is pushing through the region and pushing off the coast.